Hey people, that was a sneak peek of today's song that I'm going to be breaking down today, and this is also going to be released on my Spotify very soon. And if you'd like to show me some love, I have a pre-save link down in the description below, and I'd really appreciate it if you would check that out. So let's go ahead and dive right into this one. I've got some cool stuff for the vocals, cool stuff for the drums as well, and yeah, let's do it. Okay, so here is the project file for this one, and I'm going to break it down rather than build it from scratch just because this one is already done. So we're at 120 here. And my typical style is to kind of like to mix electronic and organic sounding instruments. So I usually love to use piano, violin, anything that sounds kind of organic. So I started with these piano chords, and I'm using the Noir piano from Native Instruments here. So that was without any of the effects. So let me go ahead and re-enable this send. And what I'm using here for that one is the Valhalla Supermassive, which is free. And it's a really, really cool kind of mixture of a delay and reverb in one. So I have that sending pretty heavily at the beginning here. So you hear all those nice kind of reverby echoes. Just kind of gives it a really nice, lush, spacey feeling. And then I layered that piano with another piano, because why wouldn't you just layer two pianos? This one is actually just a little bit different tone. So that's the Gentleman piano from Native Instruments. And that's the Noir. So the Noir is a little bit more mellow, just kind of the upper end. And then for the Gentleman, I kind of like to EQ it a bit differently. So I cut off most of the highs. And I'm just kind of having it play in that mid-range just to give the piano a little bit more like body, I guess. So that's what those two are doing. And those chords repeat the entire way. And next I have this Vox pad. So basically I took a vocal off of Splice. So this vocal pad sounds like this. So basically to make a pad out of this, all you have to do is, let's insert a MIDI track and just take that audio sample, drop it here, and it'll put it into a sampler for you. And then if you hover over this top bar here and right click, it gives you this option to do simpler to sampler. And now what you can do is kind of hone in on a section, and what you can do is change this sustain mode to loop, and then you can set the brackets wherever you want it to loop from. So the actual section I use for this song sounds like that. And the processing really can change the way it sounds. So I just have it under a really tight EQ here. Let me turn the rest of this off for now. So this is really just constraining it to the mid-range. Some compression here just so it's keeping the volume in check a little bit. And then what's really kind of making it a nice pad is this Valhalla Supermassive. It's really just washing everything together and, you know, changing it from kind of noticeable syllables and words into just a nice washy ambient pad. So next let's talk about the drums, because that's kind of a lot of the driving force behind this track. So let's just start with this kind of basic kick and snare that I have here. And it's just a pretty basic kick and snare pattern just to kind of keep the rhythm, because what I did here was kind of some glitchy sounding percussion, and it sounds like this. So we've got a lot of really cool sounds and rhythms and textures happening. And I'll show you how to do this. So to make those cool drums, what I did was I started with just a full drum loop. And what I did was I actually stretched it to double the length. So I just did ×2. And this is basically just slowing it down even more. And the more you stretch things, kind of the glitchier they're going to start to sound, especially on this beats warp mode. You can tell that sounds like pretty glitchy already, but I went a step further and changed this warp mode actually to the texture. And then what I did was just kind of automate this grain and flux size as the loop was playing and re-recorded it into another audio track. It's also fun to play with the pitch sometimes too. And that's basically, a really cool way to resample and get some cool sounds. So now that you have all of this audio here, you can get rid of your original. And what I did after that was just kind of took some chops that I liked, so things that sounded cool to me. So maybe that, so just select it, Control E. And then basically that's what I did for all of this stuff here was I went through and found some things I liked and kind of fit it in with the rest of the drums here. And a really cool and fun way to just go through this is to just pick different sections. If you hold Control Shift, you can start to loop through here. And this is a really fun way to just find different sections of that entire recorded audio to pick different things to fit in the beat. So maybe I like that section better. You can also, if you hold Alt instead of just Control and Shift, if you hold Control Shift Alt, you can move it freely and just really line it up on the grid to where you want it to. But yeah, that's just a cool way to get some nice, interesting textures and rhythms that you're probably not going to come up with on your own. At least I wouldn't. So the rest of this is just pretty simple here. That vocal, like I said before, I'm also just using a section of it here. So I'm just taking one little chop of it and just going through and pitching it. So just kind of finding what sounds good. So -11 for that one, -7, and just, finding where it sounds in key. And a cool thing to also mention is this formants section can really change the way that the vocal sounds, especially when you're pitching it this much. So I kind of liked that the formants, if I play this one here, kind of sounds like breathy and a little bit more ambient versus a little harsh. So it's always cool to just play with this and see how it changes the sound. And then lastly, with those vocals, I'm just using full chops of it here, doing something similar where I have them pitched down and then the formants taken down as well. And then those are running through the Valhalla Supermassive. So I have these a little less wet than most of the other stuff. So I created this effect rack with just a dry chain for the vocal, and then the Valhalla Supermassive at 100% wet, and then just mixed it in to taste. And then the compressor here is just set to sidechain to the dry vocals. Bass, as usual, I just have this bass that I made with Wavetable. And this is kind of the upper sounding bass. And I've shown how to make a Reese style bass before, so very similar. And I'm layering it with just kind of a sine wave sub bass. And then I have this kind of lead instrument that I made with Serum. And that's kind of just almost like an ARP. It's functioning as just repeating the same thing over and over. And kind of the last couple things down here, I have that guitar, which you heard in the beginning. And I just double tracked it. So I have one slightly panned to the right, one to the left. And I'm running both of those through the archetype Corey Wong. So I just took this preset and just tweaked it a little bit so it didn't have as much delay because it was sounding a little bit muddy. And then I have them grouped, going through a little bit of saturation, some compression, OTT again, just to make it a little bit brighter. And that's ducked to the kick as well. And then real quick, the arrangement, as usual, I like to do a little bit of an intro. I don't usually like to start full on with everything playing. So I just have those pianos and the vocal pad. And I do have it automated so it has more of the reverb at the beginning than when it's playing in the main section, just so it's not as washed out. The bass with the sub comes in kind of at the main section. Drums come in at the main section as well. Vocal chops playing throughout, and then I have just the main phrase kind of in this breakdown section. And then I made sure that I timed this so that delay is kind of ending right when this comes back in. And I know a lot of times I forget that inserting silence is actually a really great way to transition between things, because my thought is always to add more when I'm transitioning back to a different spot. But sometimes taking things away is a really great way to arrange and make things stand out more when they come back. And I think that's pretty much going to do it for this one. If you enjoyed, please remember hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not. We're almost at 10,000, which is so amazing. Thank you to everyone who has supported the channel so far. It's so much appreciated. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Take care.